Hi, friends. It is so good to see you. I think we can keep saying Happy New Year. It's a little cringe. People say you're not supposed to say it after a certain date, but I don't care because I want to wish you a Happy New Year because this is the first time I have seen your beautiful face all year in 2023. So I hope you are having a great start to the year and that you had a wonderful, safe, and happy and healthy holiday season. I wanted to say a big hi to Scott coming in from Ohio, Ellen coming in from Port Townsend, Andrew, Jim, Mindy, Jeff. Gosh, it is so good to see you, Giacomo and Laura. I love seeing that you're joining us. If you're new here, this is a great time to join the party as we kick off 2023. We come here every single Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern to talk to interesting, smart, talented, wonderful individuals so that we can steal all their secrets, copy their homework, and use it for ourselves. You might think that you signed up for a session today where you get to sit back and relax. And that is somewhat true. It's kind of a choose your own adventure. You can sit back and relax, or you can lean on in, grab that caffeine, take a big swig so you can get that jolt of energy, and you can join us over in the chat where all the party is happening. You can let us know, like Annabelle, that you're coming in from San Antonio, Texas. Greetings from Austin, where I'm joining today. So we would love to say hello and hi and just welcome you into the community. And I'm really excited because I feel like, as you know, the minute we start off a new year, there's all these new goals, new me, new vision, and I love that. And maybe you love that. But what I feel like a lot of that is missing is a process and making it part of a greater story and a greater narrative that we want to tell about ourselves and about who we are and what we do going into this new year. So if you have joined us previously, you might recognize the person who is joining us today, Kristina Pater, because she joined us just a few months ago here on Coffee with Kim. And what I really loved about Kristina and her skill is really putting you at the center of your own greatest movie. You are the star of your show. Sure, there are supporting actors. Sure, there's some villains, but you are the star of your own adventure. And so what I'm so excited to have her do with us today is really create a process around goal setting, around telling our new narrative for the new year. And if you're like me, starting with a blank page and that cursor just kind of flickering at you is a little intimidating. It's a little much. So I'm excited for Kristina to give us a template, a formula, a way of thinking about this that is a whole lot better than that cursor blinking on over at us. As a reminder, if you have questions, comments, this doesn't make sense, how do I think about this? That's what the chat is for. Please, please, please ask away. This is an interactive session. We're all around the table together. So I don't want you to feel like you have to wait till the end or not ask a question. If it's right there on the tip of your tongue, make sure to type it on in and we'll tackle it in real time as we're going through this. And as Ellen kicked off, Kristina is awesome. So everybody, can you raise your caffeine of choice or whatever's in your cup and help me welcome Kristina to 2023 and our coffee chat.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me again. It's amazing to be back here with all of you. Giacomo, thank you. Ellen, thank you. Everyone, welcome. So excited to be here and to talk about, as you alluded to, Kim, our main character energy. What are we doing? What are we doing this year?
I'm so excited to talk to you, Kristina, because I purposely, over the last week and a half, have not done my 2023 goals yet. I was waiting for this session. So I feel like I'm just like everybody else being like, okay, let's go. How do I think about this?
Great. Well, let's line you up. And anyone else who's still wondering or waiting or just wasn't quite ready yet or whatever the case is, I'm not sure where people are at or how they're feeling. And I'd love to hear where people are at with your goals. Are you like on fire? Are you doing them like me? This year I have like an 8-plex goal plan, goals and plans, and did reviews and all this kind of stuff in my inbox. Last year, didn't set a single goal until April. And then I set like one goal for myself. So wherever this finds you, it's not to worry. There's no judgment here. It's about leaning into literally where your main character energy is and just going with yourself. And if you're ready, or even if you're not ready to set goals, this first part is going to be very gentle and welcoming for you. And so, Kim, as I kind of alluded to, if we can use you as a model, as a role model for us all today, let's ask some live questions on the fly. And for anyone playing along at home, if you have a Post-it note or a little like old school yellow lined pad with your Bic 4-color, whatever you got, whatever tools you got, like, let's go with it. And so what I like to do is start with, first of all, I see the LinkedIn user who said she's so overwhelmed. He or she is so overwhelmed at the moment. So let's take a breath. Always good to get oxygen. Let's take that deep breath. And so what I'd like to ask you first is, let's take a look back. Let's take a look at last year and tell me and write down for you guys playing along at home or in your office or your car. Name 3 wins. Name 2 wins. Name 1 win. Let's keep it super easy. Let's name 1 win. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be a professional win. I know we're on LinkedIn and we're all trying to look, a little extra snazzy around each other, and that's great. But maybe also a personal win. And so, Kim, if you would give me an example of one of your wins, just 1 win, I want to talk about how I analyze that in a class that I teach on this.
I love this. I will actually, because I am an A++ brown nosing student, I'm going to give you 2 wins. Okay. Because I also just feel like using myself as the sacrificial lamb will be helpful. So yes. I will give you kind of a more serious win, more work win, which was for me a big goal in 2022 was to execute on some 2-day workshops. So I had done like single-day speaking events, 1-day workshops, but I knew that if I had the opportunity to really dig in with a team more than a day, give me 2 days, I could really sink in and do some lasting changes. So that was my big goal. I'm happy to say that I accomplished it. I ended up doing 3 2-day workshops with 3 different individual groups and companies. So that was a big win, but I also feel like that was a very lofty win. So for anybody else who's joining us that might be like, oh my gosh, I didn't have any big lofty wins like that, or maybe the type that Kristina is talking about, I will say I planted my first veggie garden. If you follow me on Instagram, you know the stories from the veggie garden. And I was successful in 2022. I'm very proud to say that I grew a little baby watermelon. He was about this big. It took me about a month and a half, but you know what? He made it, and he was so cute and so delicious. And that was an accomplishment. I'll tell you what, watering, making sure the soil, keeping the squirrels away from the watermelon. I had to have this like bucket systems so they wouldn't eat my watermelon. So those were my 2 big goals for the year, I would say.
So I love these 2 examples. They are so great. So the first thing, I just kind of want to set this up and say, if we were writing a movie and you were the main character, as you are in your life, and the whole movie was about getting these 3 2-day workshops done, or getting a 2-day workshop done and you exceeded it. And secondly, if it was growing a garden, or specifically growing a baby watermelon, which I love, little baby watermelon, LB Dubs, we'll call him or her for sure, for short. And so one thing that we look at when we look at a Hollywood movie is like, there's 3 essential, absolutely, you cannot have a Hollywood movie without these things, right? First is the main character. That's you. That's all of you. Ellen, I see you. Mindy, I see you. Shelby, Jeffrey, it's all of you. You're the main character of your show, of your movie. Second thing that a movie does not have, or must have, like it's not a movie unless it has this, is a goal. That's it, right? So now we've got a main character, we've got a goal, we've got 2 out of the 3 things that make a movie a movie. And then the third thing is obstacles. Now there's all kinds of things, right? So I can like break this down into character DNA and your personal narrative forensics and your goal and give you all kinds of structures for goals, which we'll get to. But these are the 3 things that make a movie a movie. And so hopefully in our lives, the obstacles are less and the goals are, and we're coming over fewer flaws and things like that. But those are the 3 things. So we've already got 2 of them. And so as we look back, as you look back and we can think about these goals that you accomplished, I'm probably going to fire away with a bunch of questions. One, I would say, did you write them down? Like, did you intend in January or at any particular point in the year in 2022, did you intend to do these things in any form or fashion?
Yes.
Okay. And did you write them down as they were the win? Like, is that the win you wrote down, or did you write down something different? Did you maybe write down, I'm going to grow green beans and I'm going to teach a 4-day workshop or something like that?
A little bit. So I did a multiple day workshop. So I didn't necessarily classify it as 2 days. It was more multiple days. And you're right. I just did some sort of like large produce. Like if I would have grown a cauliflower, I would have been happy.
Okay, great. And so the idea that I talk about all the time is we're not here to judge, right? We're not here to say, oh, I didn't grow a cauliflower. Dang it, I failed. I grew a watermelon. We're just here to be like, oh, I set out to do something and I got little baby watermelon, or I set out to do a cauliflower and I ended up with little baby watermelon is one that grew and thrived. We're just observing. We're observing and just being like, yeah, okay, great. So that's cool. Okay. So that's the first thing. We're looking at what was the goal? What did we think the goal was? What did we actually accomplish? Right. Another question I like to ask is let's talk about your character DNA. And for everyone listening along to your character DNA as it relates to these goals. And so I define character DNA in 3 components. The first one is your strengths. So I want you to think about what were your strengths in growing little baby watermelon? What were your strengths in the 2-day workshop? And ultimately, I'd like to have you choose 5, but for this like short abbreviated version, like I can teach a whole class on character DNA and your strengths. And what I find is that my students, some of them have a blind spot in the strengths. We're going to talk about your strengths in the story, your flawsomeness in the story, like maybe you don't like to get in the dirt, or maybe you don't like to stand up in front of people, which I doubt is your thing, but it might be maybe it's like hard for you for some reason. And then also your superpowers in the story. And so the 3 of those things, strengths, superpowers, and flawsomeness, make up your character DNA and tell us what things were working for you as you pursued this goal and what things did you have to overcome in order to achieve this goal. So is there anything you'd like to share with us there, Kim, on those things?
I would say one of my strengths probably with the multiple day workshop is it was a topic that I was heavily integrated in. I like live, breathe, sweat, eat LinkedIn all the time. So it's a topic that I was really well versed in. I would say a flawsomeness about it was probably just getting in my own way, quite frankly, or not knowing how to go about running a multiple day workshop because I hadn't done it before. So maybe getting a little sea legs when it came to that. And then I would say a superpower, maybe that would be the fact that I had done so much public speaking previously. So to your point, I don't have a problem getting up in front of a group of people, which is a skill I think that most people find rather intimidating.
Right. And so if we think about that information that you just shared, what there is to learn there is that if you're going to do another type of workshop or event, these are your areas of comfort zone. And so if we were doing a more in-depth thing, we would be like, okay, so, or if you're evaluating perhaps another opportunity, you can be like, okay, great. I know the topic. I remember what it's like and what it feels like in my body and my, just everything, to talk on a topic that I live and breathe in every day. And you know your comfort level because you've talked about the superpower of getting up in front of people. So that's great. And then on the flip side, we know from your flossomeness, if you have a little bit of first time-itis, and again, we could go deeper into that, but just really to think through in future engagements, how did that go for you? Was it exciting and adrenaline building in a good way? Were there maybe some things you could do differently to give yourself additional support? And don't worry, we'll get to some of those specifics. But again, what we're all doing here is gathering information on the pursuit of our goal from last year, just to be like, yeah, okay, the first time I just was a little maybe unnerving, and okay, maybe I could have had an extra assistant, or, you know, something you start thinking about. I really freaked out the night before or the week before, or I didn't, but I was nervous throughout the whole thing, or, you know, or was it a big deal, or maybe less of a big deal? Maybe as you think about it and as we have this conversation, you may think, whew, yeah, I remember this moment was really tough. Or as I think about it, maybe it wasn't as, you know, what we come up with the first draft idea. Maybe it's like, oh, you know, what was actually really harder is something else. So all that's okay. What we're doing is, again, gathering the information, thinking that through, appreciating our strengths and our superpowers, right? Okay. So then the next thing we want to do is think about your allies in the story. So who was along for the ride? For example, with little baby watermelon, did you go to the store all by yourself, buy the seeds by yourself, plant everything, water everything, do everything by yourself? Never look at a YouTube video, never talk to anybody about anything? Like, is that how it went? Or who was involved? What resources? And we think about this in terms of allies.
I would say I have a coach. I have a coach who helps me with the gardening stuff. So she was my big ally for growing my watermelon.
Amazing. Were there any other friends involved, or Home Depot? I don't know, any place you bought the nursery where you brought the plants, or tutorials?
Yeah, the nursery, buying the seeds and some of the fertilizer and stuff that we needed for sure.
Okay. And what about for your workshops?
I would say for my workshops, oh my goodness, tons of resources there, whether it was YouTube, newsletters. I mean, the list goes on. There was a ton of research I was doing for that one.
Awesome. So what I would encourage everyone to do is to write those down. A couple of years ago when I was doing this exercise, I realized how much I love when I take a walk in the morning. There's like so many people in my neighborhood that I say hello to. We've gotten to know each other over the years because it's a very small community neighborhood. My gardener here in the complex that I live in, who carries up my water for me when I had a shoulder injury. And just like, it's a lot of people along the way that maybe even we run into circumstantially once in a while, or we see them on a regular basis, that really add something to our day. I'm like, you know what, in doing this exercise, and so if you take the moment to write everything down or come back to the question later, I think, and my students have told me that they find it amazing, like who comes up, like who else is in the story that maybe they didn't realize or appreciate as much. So that's always a great exercise to do. And then, so next,
Shelby had a question that I want us to cover, which is, if you're doing this exercise at home or as you're listening to this on your iPod walking along, how do you define the difference between strengths and superpowers?
Great question. Yes. So strengths are things that you are good, maybe good to great at. Superpowers are things you're great to exceptional at. Superpowers are where I'm thinking of an example of one of my own, which is chocolate desserts. Chocolate desserts are one of my superpowers. And if someone's going to invite me over, they're going to be like they did this year at Christmas, they're going to be like, bring your chocolate fix. You know, they're like, we want you for Christmas and you have to bring dessert, right? So that's a superpower in a situation. Kim, you mentioned speaking, public speaking, and being comfortable in front of audiences. That's a superpower for you. So when you're doing your workshop, that is always going to be like it's beyond the strength. It's a supercharged strength. Like that is just something that you excel at so much that you are known for it, that you can do it under the toughest of circumstances. Like you are just really exceed at that. And the importance in differentiating is because not everything can be a superpower. I am not great at vegetables. I am not great at breads. I am not great at grilling meat, right? And so no one's going to invite me to Christmas for grilling meat, at least not right now. And so it's important to make that distinction for yourself. And especially as you do this over time, right? It's important to make that distinction and also to celebrate not everything has to be a superpower. You can have things that you're good at consistently, that kind of thing.
And then I'm curious, as we're looking back on 2022 and we're thinking about 2023, what if someone is saying to themselves, well, a superpower or strength that I used in 2022, I don't know if that applies to my 2023 goals. Do you look at this differently if your goals are shifting in the new year?
I look at this exercise that we're doing now as like a completion and celebration exercise, and to get us warmed up into thinking about how we are our main character in our story. The most important thing we can do is be the protagonist, be the active protagonist in our story. And so part of that is knowing ourselves as well as we can. And part of that is differentiating between strengths and superpowers. And absolutely, yes, we may have 2023 may demand of us different superpowers than we flexed in 2022, or different strengths. It may demand of us that we overcome different flawsomeness, or we flex our flawsomeness. What may have happened to us in 2022 may have been more of a flaw than awesome. 2023, that same thing may be more awesome than flaw. So it's about knowing ourselves. It's about observing. It's about tracking this information and how we show up in each different chapter or act of our lives.
That makes total sense. And then the other question I was curious about is, I'm wondering if you yourself, Kristina, do you have these goals that you set for yourself, whether it's in 2022 or 2023, do you actually have them visible anywhere? Because I know a lot of people talk about like Post-it notes or vision boards or putting it as like the background on your phone. I'm just curious, do you have that?
I wish I could. It's a great question, because I see a lot of people are doing vision boards, and there's like a few things going on where like they're talking about Oprah does them, Reese Witherspoon does them, Roger Bannister, the guy who broke the 4-minute mile, did it, and then people after him did it to show that they could do that. My answer is not always. I was off of vision boards for a while because I'm like, I felt after a while like I was picking like things out of magazines. And I just, also because I live on an island and we don't really get magazines here, and everything it's like a big expense and whatever. It's not that we can't, it's just that it's just not something I spend money on anymore. However, that said, last year, toward the end of last year, I did, and I'm looking over here. I wish I could share on my camera, but I'm looking over here at a small stack of huge movie posters, full-size movie posters to inspire me for the Dominican Republic-based screenplays I'm writing for this year. I'm developing for this year, and so I have movie posters of Eat, Pray, Love, of Two Tickets to Paradise, or Ticket to Paradise, the one with Julia Roberts and George Clooney. I have Lost City, I have Rocky, I have Romancing the Stone. And so it's like, in a moment, this is going to be like, as soon as I hang them up around my office, it's going to be like a teenage den in here of movie posters. So the answer is yes and no. And I think that goes back to about vision boards and visually writing goals down. This year, I will be more focused and reviewing goals and where I'm at with my plans on a weekly and monthly basis. So much more regimented than I was last year. And so that's how it's going to unfold this year.
Well, and I'm curious, that kind of follows into Giacomo's question, I think, really beautifully, which is, as you set these goals for yourself and display them perhaps visually or on a post-it note or whatever you may do in your phone or around your house, um, how can you use that to inspire you? And is there a way to get to those goals faster? I think that's probably a common question that you get a lot is, okay, I know what I want, but how do I get it, tomorrow? I wait 6 months to accomplish my goal. How can I get it faster?
Well, I think it's what I've found and what I see happen with my students a lot is that the clarity on the goal helps you get it faster. And I think it's adding in all of these additional elements that we're talking about, knowing ourselves, knowing our flaws, really. I mean, if you watch any movie, look at Maverick. Maverick made this huge comeback this year, right? 35 years later, unprecedented, unheard of, like unbelievable. And what did we see with his character? Still is the same flaw, still is to overcome that same flaw of being like a lone ranger, basically, like in this film. And so when we think about what moves us faster, it's about knowing ourselves and knowing what else we need to help us, to put around us, to support us, to overcome that flaw in order to see that goal. It's about getting really honest with ourselves and being like, what, and asking the question, when I look at my goal for next year or last year, what would have stopped you? What obstacles did you have? Like the squirrel. We haven't talked about antagonists and some of the other things I put in place. I also talk about mentors and stuff in movies. So mentors can help us accelerate that time frame. Planning can help us accelerate the time frame. Allies, enlisting additional allies can help us accelerate the time frame. And so it's not like, this is again like a very fast version of it, but when we dig into each and every element, like taking allies, for example, if we went through and cataloged all your allies that helped you with this workshop goal, and I don't even know that your goal is to 10x that this year, but if you wanted to, if your goal was to 10x Little Baby Watermelon or workshop, one thing we would look at is how many more allies do you need and where? Are they mentors? Are they friends? Are they random people that you happen to meet? Are they clients that refer clients, right? And so we just start looking at how do we increase all of these things? And then at the same time, how do we neutralize the antagonists, the squirrels? How do we know to put the bucket around the watermelon? Who is that person? It's like, who's helping us with that information and that strategic stuff so that we can continue to move toward the big grand finish line.
And do you find that when you're setting, if someone's like, okay, it's 2023, I'm excited to do some January goals, do you find that it's helpful to do lots of goals? Like, here's my list of 10 to 15 goals? Or are you really about let's curate 3 to 4 really, really targeted goals and go after that? Or what have you seen, I guess, also with the clients that you've worked with?
Sure. Well, going back to like a movie is about a character in pursuit of a goal and the obstacles that they must overcome in order to achieve that goal. One goal, single. However, when I was head of marketing and research for a $10 billion company that became a $15 billion company in 4 years, we ran, like our company was run on SMART goals, and we would have 6. We'd aim to write down 6 for ourselves. We'd review it upward with our boss. And then like I had my staff, so I reviewed it with them. We reviewed the goals twice a year, and they were contingent, or our bonuses, our promotions were contingent upon achieving those goals. So I kind of now have the SMART goal system like ingrained in me. And so I say, yeah, I think, but those goals, those 6 goals, were just goals in that business. They weren't my personal goals, my education goals, my health goals. I think it's important for people to know, to look at those, to consider those. And I think it's great to do a year in review like we just did a little sample of on all of the things, even if you didn't have health goals last year, let's say, or even if you didn't think you had educational goals last year, if you look back, did you read books? Did you listen to podcasts that had any scientists on them or health stuff on them? Like, we probably are doing more than we want. And so if we can take a minute in January and say, oh yeah, I'm really curious about, for me personally, I'm curious about brain health and brain science now. So I'm really into it and I'm reading more books and I'm getting more into it, but I don't have a specific plan laid out for that, right? And so I don't know if other people too, like if you kind of let things more loose, we're less likely to achieve them. And I want to share some stats if I could. We can have a numbers binge for a minute on goal setting. And people have probably heard a lot of these, but one is that 80% of New Year's resolutions fail by February. It's because we don't believe that we can do them or we don't have a plan to make them happen. There was a 1979 Harvard MBA study that said only 3% of grads wrote down their goals, but those 3% earned 10 times as much money as the other grads. There's another study by Gail Matthews that says 42% of us are more likely to achieve our goals and dreams simply by writing them down daily. And a friend of mine who's coming out with a book in September, Carol Mahoney, says that she's writing a book on salespeople, that people who write down personally meaningful goals. So it's maybe not just, and not to pick on you, but because we're talking shorthand, but it's not just do the 2 workshops or the 1 2-day workshop or the 3 2-day workshops, but it's help people, be better on LinkedIn so they can be more successful and be more happy. And so maybe that's what you wrote down when we did our shorthand. But what Carol Mahoney is saying is that people who wrote down personally meaningful goals are 298%, almost 300% more likely to be elite top salespeople. Those are people in the top 6% who meet or exceed their goals. And so I just share that to say, like, there's a lot of numbers, right? And I earlier in my career, I was meant to be writing some things where the percentage of change was like 1.8% or 3%. I'm like, I don't care about that. Tell me something where there's 75% of something's happening or 50% of something's happening, because we can see across all of these channels that people are just having more success by writing down the goal, revisiting it on a regular basis. And there's probably a lot of ways to amplify that too. Talk to your coach about it, your watermelon coach, if you have one. Talk to your friends, talk to your, mastermind group or family, spouse. Find a peer group that you can collaborate with that way, so you have some place to go and revisit what you want to do and how it's going. Because maybe what we set out at the beginning of the year fluctuates, because maybe all of a sudden your garden is burgeoning and you become a top watermelon producer and you don't have time to do the workshops, right? It's a great visual example. And yes, I'm having some fun with it. And maybe that would happen, maybe it wouldn't. But there are things that are maybe closer if we're doing our 6 goals around the workshop. That's something, we get to do more of one thing and less of another thing. And again, to stay in the information and the observer mode is where you really benefit from, because we have a tendency to be judgmental of ourselves, and we can shut ourselves down before we even see what we're capable of.
So I'm curious if someone was listening to this and saying, okay, it's Wednesday, it's the middle of the workday. I don't actually have time right this second. Or maybe they're listening to this, as they're walking their dog on a podcast later this week. And they're like, I can't actually do the exercise right this second, but I want to do the exercise on Saturday or Sunday or, Tuesday afternoon when I have a little bit more breathing room. How much time should people set aside to dig into an exercise like this, especially if they're by themselves? I mean, obviously, if you have somebody that's doing it with you, like we are right now, you can kind of have that guide. But if it's just you, and to your point, a pen and a piece of paper, how much time should you be setting aside to do this?
Interesting question. I don't like to limit myself here because I know how powerful it can be, but I would start where I would start is with 20 minutes or 40 minutes is where I'd start. I'm a big fan of using Pomodoro. If people don't know what that is, it's like simply you set a 20-minute timer on your phone. I actually do 22. It's my lucky number. And I like to have made myself a cup of coffee or tea or hot chocolate. And I like to have a nice notebook and my purple pen or my whatever I'm doing. And so I think that's a good amount of time. I will throw out there that I offer a free goal setting mini course. It's 33 minutes in total. May have to stop along the way to write out your stuff. You can find that at hollywoodapproach.com.
Hollywoodapproach.com. Okay, that is helpful if anybody wants a free, we love free. Who doesn't love free? Workshop to go through this. That's extremely helpful. Thank you for offering that to everybody. That's
sure.
Awesome.
And that is like straight up, like, let's get to it. Write these things down. Here's all the things. Here's some examples, Yeah.
And it looks like Ellen has a question about a certain book by Jill Taylor called My Stroke of Insight. She says that it's a book about brain science meets energetic wellness. So have you heard about this book or read this book?
Yes, I think she did a TED, if I'm not mistaken, she did a TED talk on it as well. And I'm trying to remember, I always confuse this book with another one of someone else who had an ND, who had a near-death experience. And actually, I'm not sure if she had an NDE or if she was okay through the whole part of her stroke. But yes, it's an incredible story. And I'm certainly familiar with this author. She's Ellen, if I'm not mistaken, she's a neurologist or neuroscience herself. Like, so she had a stroke and then was talking about observing. She was observing what was going on and then had to retrain herself to speak and to write and just to do everything. If I recall, that is the gist of the story. But thank you for bringing her up.
I have not heard that book, so now I'm adding it to the book list. So thank you, Ellen. And Kristina, I just have a few more questions that are just personal questions for me. So anyone feel free to drop some in the chat, but I have some that I wrote down, which is, how do you feel or how do you structure with the clients that you work with kind of personal goals versus work goals? Do you encourage mixing the two? Is it church and state? We keep our personal goals, which might be, for someone, go on a date or, create a date night with my spouse or something, as opposed to work goals, which might be, getting a 10% raise or working on a more meaningful project. Do you think that those should live in the same place? Do you encourage your clients separating those?
I do think it's a personal choice. I don't have like I say all the time, there's no one size fits all. I think it's great to try a format and see how it works for you and see, is that actually working? So for example, if you're doing the exercises today along with us, or if you do the class separately, and you go into the details of SMART goals and these other components, what comes up for you? What comes up for you as your priority? The way I do it for myself and the way I did it for the company, which increased its revenue by $5 billion in 4 years, is I do them separately, and then I put weighted goals for each. And so I say, what percentage out of 100% importance are these goals? And so I have drafts, like I write this whole thing out the way I approach a book or a screenplay. Like there is a first like crappy draft, and there's like a puberty draft, and then there's kind of like okay, I feel like this is where we're going. And again, for me, I constantly or consistently revisit to see how I'm doing, where I'm at. Part of if we remember, part of SMART goals is the A, which is achievable. And what I see across the board is my students always say, I don't know, but I think it's possible. And so we're going to go for it. So something that happens in that too is some people really like to, and this can happen in different years. One year you might just be like, I want to set a goal and I want to achieve that goal. And other times people will be like, I want to set a stretch goal and see if, just be like, woo, see if I can just stretch a little bit to get it. And then other times people are like, I want to climb the whole, Everest tomorrow, which is out, like it's just out of, they're not allowing enough time. And then where that comes in to help yourself is where you make the plan. If you're moving toward climbing Everest this May, which is like those 2 weeks that you can actually summit it, and you're not going to make it, but maybe you now can run a half marathon or a 5K or something you couldn't do today. So different people are motivated and find successes in different ways. And that's where we, again, go back to the observation. You got to observe what's working for you and not judge and be like, well, that didn't work out. I, set the goal to climb Everest in May. I just barely got off my couch to make myself spaghetti peanut butter noodles. So maybe I'll try to just walk around the block. That will be my next goal. It is observing.
And then do you find, I know we were talking really heavily about that main character energy, putting yourself as the focus of the story. How do you feel about people who might say, I don't know exactly who I want to be. I don't know, but I really look up to, could be somebody personally that they know at work. It could be a sort of larger than life figure, a Katie Couric or, Oprah or somebody like that. How do you feel about people who say, I want to model my main character off of another main character that already exists? Is that something that you encourage, or really, no, I'd rather you stop, take the time, do the 33-minute, free workshop and really create your own main character instead of modeling after somebody else?
There's two ways that I would work with that. One is I would encourage someone, and I write about this in my book. There's a chapter called Narrative Forensics. And so I think it's important. It's like a Pimp Daddy Mac version of what we did looking back on 2022. It's looking back on your life. What are your big success stories in your life? And not just last year. And in the book, I encourage people to go back as far back as they can remember. Like I'm talking about Girl Scouts, dance troupe. And the reason for that is because those stories and the way we analyze them tell us clues about ourselves. Where were we successful? Where were we happy? How did we do it? Did we do it alone? At what parts did we do it alone? Do we do it with a friend? At what parts did we do it with a friend? Where do we find ourselves having fun in these stories? And what of these stories do we love to tell over and over because they light us up and they make us feel good? And so that's called narrative forensics. And if you do just that chapter in my book, that is a great way to remember who you are as a main character. Because yes, I do want you to know who you are as a main character. You've got to know your own strengths and superpowers. And also it is great to have a mentor, whether you know them in real life or not. It is fantastic. And I'm a huge advocate of having all kinds of mentors, from Hollywood movie characters that are fictional to real life characters that are portrayed in Hollywood movies like Erin Brockovich, to Oprah, and to all kinds of people. And what's important in that, I think, is knowing what part of the story, what part of them do you want to be your mentor? Is it their career? Is it how they specifically, you look at Oprah's amazing, amazing career, but like, where do you find yourself in her story? And in what way is she your mentor? I like to look at people in Hollywood a lot, like Erin Brockovich. I just love her as a character, and I love her spin-off show. I can't remember the name of it. It starred Katie Sagal. And I love looking at her as someone who has like a very distinct type of energy and badassery as she goes about life and the things that she does. And so I'm a huge fan of that. If you need to be more courageous and care a little bit less, but have like a big purpose. I don't want to say care less, because it's not that she doesn't care, but hopefully everyone knows what I mean. Like that's a great type of character and role model to choose from. Now, please don't choose Don Corleone or some of these like gangster people, but like finding someone that you can observe and study their energy, their choices, their decisions. If that gives you inspiration, absolutely.
I love that. It's always helpful when you can, you know, copy somebody's homework a little bit and what they're doing that you really love. So as you know, we love homework around these parts. And so I will say on behalf of me, I think a great homework assignment for everybody leaving us today is to go to hollywoodapproach.com and take advantage of this free 33-minute goal setting amazing program that Kristina has given us. But I'm curious for you, Kristina, what is a homework assignment that you would give all of us in addition to obviously capitalizing and utilizing the free resource that you have provided us with this 33-minute goal setting workshop?
The homework, it's such a dangerous question because as a coach, as a writing coach and a coach, whenever I'm asked about homework, I'm like, well, here's here's what I would absolutely have you do. And then here's the extended list if you want extra credit.
We love that.
So yeah, like careful if you ask me for homework. The thing I would invite everyone to do for homework is really taking pen to paper and writing down all of the allies that helped you achieve your 2022 wins. All of those allies. Think about, so that would require you to know your wins. So that's kind of a sneaky backdoor. You have to know your wins. So maybe write down your wins and then go through each one and consider who was on your journey with you in small ways and in big ways. And then what I would have you do, because again, there's going to be like, if you want, but I think this is the exciting part, then you act like an FBI agent, like with your, case wall. And so, like, you will start to see themes like, oh, there was that friendly person who greeted me so nicely and just made my day better. Or, oh, my best friend was with me on all of these things. Or you start to notice patterns of character types, mentors, just regular castmates. You start to notice patterns. So that's the magic in that exercise.
I love that. Okay. If people are leaning forward and saying, okay, I love this. I love everything that Kristina is talking about. It's really resonating with me. What else are you working on in 2023? How can people continue to be involved in learning from you and really crafting their own 2023 main character energy?
Yes. Well, I am working on launching a major course called Reboot Your Life. And you can find out more about that at the end of the free thing. There's not a huge sales pitch, but it's like just, you'll be on the list. You can always contact me through LinkedIn, Instagram. Like the course is live now, but that is the big thing. And then if you're more of like, I don't know about this just yet, my book is out there. It's more of a self-study and you can go chapter by chapter. I was inspired in part and influenced in my career by The Artist's Way. So if that resonates with anyone, it's that kind of thing where you do exercises and you're really learning about yourself. People who are self-help and personal development aficionados and people who are into personal growth really like it because you're developing your emotional intelligence and learning about how you can be nurturing your subconscious with your own stories and using like what's already working for you. I'm all about the productivity and the efficiency, using what's already working for you to bring that forward.
Well, we love that. We're self-help aficionados around here.
Oh,
so
right.
I can already tell that there's everyone going, yeah, that sounds like me. That sounds about right. Well, Kristina, thank you so much for taking us through, this small snippet and for providing us with this 33-minute kind of extended version, even though it's still mini, extended version of helping us set our 2023 goals. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. And just wanted to say thank you for joining us.
Such a great pleasure, as always. I love this group. Thank you. So nice to see many of you again and the new faces as well. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me.
So much fun. It was so much fun having you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and really digging into your 2023 goals, where you want to be, what your main character energy is going to look like. I'm really excited for next Wednesday at 1 p.m. because we have one of LinkedIn Learning's top instructors, Chris Croft, joining us, and he is going to help us dig into negotiating. If one of your 2023 goals is to, get that raise, make more money, go up in the corporate workplace, we are setting our goals with Kristina, and then Chris is going to help us implement them in terms of asking those hard questions and getting into the nitty gritty. So I hope to see you next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Until then, big thank you to Alicia and Jessica and Anya and Ellen and Andrew and Jeff and Natasha and Stan and everyone who joined us live today. Or if you are listening to this on your favorite podcast network, thanks. We appreciate it. So have a wonderful rest of the week and the weekend. And I hope Kristina and I get to see your goals very soon. Bye, guys.